Bill Spencer's accident happens suddenly, without warning, the kind of tragic moment that instantly changes the course of everyone's lives. One moment he is behind the wheel, consumed with the stress of his complicated emotional life, torn between past mistakes and present desires, and the next, the crash sends him into a state where he wakes up disoriented, fragile, and confused. When he opens his eyes, the world around him feels unfamiliar, and the doctors tell Brooke Logan and the Spencer family that Bill has suffered memory loss. The blow is devastating because Bill's relationships have always depended on his fierce clarity, his sharp instincts, and his unbreakable confidence, all of which seem washed away in an instant. When Brooke is brought into Bill's hospital room, she expects distance or confusion, maybe even hostility, considering the turbulent history they've had. Instead, Bill looks at her with an intense softness, the emotion of a man whose mind has been rewound to a time when Brooke was the center of his world. His memory seems to have reverted to an earlier chapter of his life, one where Brooke was not just a love interest but the woman he believed he was destined to be with. He reaches for her hand instinctively, trusting her presence more than anyone else's, and this takes Brooke by surprise because the Bill she has recently known has been focused on other complications: Katie, Sheila, his work, and the never-ending battles with the Forresters. In this vulnerable state, Bill begins speaking to Brooke as though they are still together, as though no breakups, no heartbreaks, no betrayals have happened. The emotional whiplash is overwhelming for Brooke, who stands there watching the man who once broke her heart now clinging to her as the only person he remembers loving. She doesn't know how to correct him, doesn't know whether the truth would worsen his condition, and she struggles to figure out whether she is supposed to comfort him or distance herself. But Bill's feelings are not slow or tentative, they surge forward with full force. He begins telling Brooke that he remembers being happiest with her, that she was the anchor of his life, and that he cannot imagine a future without her. The doctors warn that pushing him too hard could jeopardize his recovery, and Brooke finds herself stuck in an emotional trap, unsure whether she should gently remind him of the truth or let him cling to whatever memory his mind has latched onto. The turning point comes when Bill looks Brooke in the eye and tells her that he doesn't want to waste another second. The accident reminds him how fragile life is, how quickly everything can end, and he tells her that the only thing that feels unquestionably real is her. Without hesitation, without any memory of their troubled past, he proposes to her with a sincerity that shakes Brooke to her core. He asks her to marry him because, in his mind, she is still the woman he is in love with, the one he imagined spending forever with. Brooke is stunned, emotionally overwhelmed. She knows that Bill is not fully himself. She knows that his proposal isn't grounded in the present reality but in a romanticized memory of a time when they were deeply in love. At the same time, she sees the raw vulnerability in him, the fear of losing her, the deep longing that he believes is real. She doesn't want to break his heart in such a fragile state, but she also knows that accepting his proposal would be dishonest and could create even more chaos in the long run. Ridge's name is brought up in Bill's confused memories, and when Brooke gently tries to explain that life has changed, Bill becomes anxious. He insists that Ridge is in the past, that Brooke belongs with him, and that the accident has made everything clear. His desperation only grows when he fears Brooke might reject him. The emotional intensity builds as Brooke tries to navigate the tightrope between compassion and honesty, trying not to destabilize him further while also resisting the pressure of a proposal made under the fog of memory loss. The fallout is inevitable. As Ridge learns of Bill's amnesia-driven declaration of love, jealousy and old rivalry ignite instantly. Katie feels conflicted and concerned, especially considering her own emotional history with Bill. Liam and Wyatt are caught off guard, wondering whether their father's regression is temporary or permanent, and whether Brooke will be drawn back into his orbit once again. Brooke herself feels the weight of every direction, the guilt of hurting Bill, the fear of misleading him, and the confusion of seeing a version of him that once made her feel cherished. The storyline leaves Brooke in a storm of emotions, standing at the crossroads between compassion and reality, while Bill, vulnerable and lost in time, clings to the one truth he believes: that Brooke is the love of his life and that fate has given him a second chance to make her his wife.